Paddy, how are you, mate?
I'm good, mate. How you doing? Good to see you.
Yeah, likewise. It's great to speak to you.
It's good to be on, mate. Thanks for
Yeah,
having me. Delighted to be here.
yeah, no, we'll have a good time. So another episode of the Diving Deep podcast where I basically invite people on from all areas of the music industry and we talk about your journey and we see where it goes. So for people
Totally.
that don't know who Paddy is, I want to give him a little bit of a short bio. So he's a DJ, producer, and owner of record label BRAW Records, based in Scotland. Been in the industry for over 20 years, started producing in pretty much 2012. He runs under an alias called LeBon, so we'll get on to that, since 2020. He's had releases from his own music on record labels such as Amplified, Shapeshift Records, and All Night Long. He's also a part of the Tool Room Academy, and he is also a mix engineer for Clear Audio. So you've been up to quite a bit, mate.
Just love it. Love all of it. Like
Yeah.
everything to do with music production, absolutely love it. So I've just expanded into all, not just producing, but mixing and engineering, mastering, and record label. Just love it all. I mean, you know yourself, mate. It just absolutely immerses you, and it just captures your kind of your
100%.
passion.
Yeah.
If it's in here, you can't help it.
No, I mean, I'll speak to a lot of people about this, and since I've been doing these podcasts as well, is that it's difficult to explain why. And I suppose it is from a love of music, not just house music, but if it's in your veins and it's part of you, then it's there, isn't it? And like, I know it is cliche to say, and I said this in one of the others, that I suppose it is just a feeling. There's something that you must get from it that is very important for you. I don't quite know what it is. I've never been able to quite put my finger on it, but it's there.
It's just there, mate. It just hits you right in the chest, and you love it. It's like, and then it's like seeing, when you first started, everyone went to the clubs when they were like underage and stuff like that, because that's when it all kind of starts, and you see the DJ in that, and it's like, oh wow, do you know what a job that is, playing your favorite records to people and seeing them go absolutely nuts and stuff like that, and you just think, that's what I want to do. I want to do that. So yeah, that's kind of where I think it all starts for a lot of people, and it just spirals from there.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, it's obviously once you start doing it, as we both know, and you start getting into the industry more and start doing other things, you realise that, like everything, it is, and I don't want to downplay this, it is an amazing area to work in and an amazing job, and whatever it is that you're doing it to do. But it also requires a lot of work if you want to start taking it to new levels.
100%. Like, it is a graft, absolutely. It's a passion. If you didn't have the passion, you wouldn't do it, because it's so much hard work. Yourself, you've got ups and downs constantly, even from like the kick drum and your track not sounding great, you feel like, oh, I've got to give this up or something. But you just have to like sort of keep going, because like round the corner, say for example, I've had loads of times a bit of like writer's block, or you just can't get anything going, and then all of a sudden you get something, and you're like, oh right, it's actually there. So I love this. So you just keep going and going, which it's phenomenal, man. And like I suppose I got into the production stuff a little bit late, but now that I'm in it, I think I'll probably be doing it for as long as I can. It's just so rewarding.
Yeah, definitely. So mate, I want to sort of like go back to the start of your dance music journey, because I don't 100% know whether or not it all started with house music, but what sort of got you into, I know you said about, going to the clubs when you were younger. Where did it all start from for you?
It's a weird one, to be honest. Like, and I suppose I'm still, I don't want to use the word haunted, but I'm sort of always conflicted with genres. So I experience something I call genre creep. And because I love so many different genres, I find it difficult to sort of sit down and produce a house track, and I end up with something completely different. So I suppose where it all started for me when I was like 14 or something like that. And this is probably going to, a lot of people might think this is a bit funny, but I used to like happy hardcore.
Yeah.
So to be honest, that's where it kind of started off for me, like that sort of high energy, happy kind of music with, that sort of kick drum and the offbeat kind of the bass and that sort of thing. It was just, that was what captured me. And then I started going to these, I suppose, under 18s discos,
Yeah.
you know. So at 15, when you couldn't get into the clubs. And then from there, I just loved that music. And then all of a sudden, it's like, okay, I seen the DJ, as I was saying before, and I was like, right, I need to get a set of decks here. And then, you know, badgered my mum to help me to buy these decks. I think I even sold my PlayStation at the time to get a set of Gemini PT2000s with a sort of 2-channel Vestax mixer.
I remember them well, mate.
And you know, so I got them, and I just, then it was like, okay, let's buy vinyls. And it wasn't really confined to any genres, man. It was like, I think the first record I ever bought was Clubhead's Kicking Hard.
Yeah.
And I just, it was so bouncy, you know, when you're a kid. Brilliant. And then, so, and I think this is what I've noticed. It's like back then, there was so much, like, genres would intertwine, and DJs would play sets. They would start off with a bit of house music.
Yeah.
Then they would kind of sort of transcend into sort of maybe a little bit of trance and stuff like that. So it was kind of house, trance, funky house, a bit of garage even, to be honest. And then the hardcore kind of died down a bit because, you know, that was more of a kind of a younger person's thing. But that's what it all happened to me. So I was buying vinyls, anything that sounded good. So my parents' house is just filled with vinyls, because I'm not playing vinyls that much anymore. I've got, that's a job for me to do, actually, is to get them all transferred onto MP3. I don't know, that's going to be a big task. But just since then, like, being a DJ and having that passion for it, like, I just couldn't get enough of it. I was like, look, you know, to your mates, when you're 16, you're having a party, your mum and dad are away, like, I'm on the decks, let's get this good. And you'd be like, well, you're not actually enjoying the party. Like, but I don't care. I'm like, I just want to be in the corner spinning the records and that, and having people come up to me and say, oh, good job, man. Do you know what I mean? So that's where it all started for me. And then it was just being a young person. And like you said, sometimes you can't even put an explanation on it. It just ignites you inside. And that's for me where it all began.
Yeah,
Really.
it's interesting. Like, because before I got into house music, I had a couple of mates that were a little bit older, and I don't know exactly. So this would have been like probably like 95, 96, and like they were massively into happy hardcore. Like really into it. Like you know, geez, I'm trying to think of some of the DJs.
Well, yeah, Dougal and
Dougal,
guys. The Bonkers albums, mate. I used
Bonkers,
to do with my Sony Discman, I think it was, with Bonkers 3 at the time. Just going through that, like, on repeat.
I want to speak a little bit, because actually it's quite interesting, about the actual rave scene in Scotland, because I know, because my family's from the Scottish heritage, so I've got, but both my parents are Glaswegian, so I've got cousins up there and that. And I remember quite vividly them going to really big raves, but like the music scene was different to what it was in England. You know, it was much higher BPM, you know, higher tempo, everything about it. Did you sort of like come through that scene of going to those sorts of things? I mean, they were huge, weren't they?
They were, mate. I mean, there was to be honest, there was a DJ called Tom Wilson, who DJ'd on a Scottish radio station called 4th FM. So every Saturday night he used to have like a show called Stepping Out, and he would just play all these tunes, and then he'd be like, you'd listen to him. I was quite young at the time, like 15, 16. I was like, right, I'm going to be at so and so club tonight, playing the tunes, whatever. And it was like, it wasn't even in a big city. It was like, and he was like saying that I was like 500-600 people going to be there, and it was just like some small kind of, not a village, but
that's how they did it, wasn't it?
Not even a town. It was like places. And I was like, wow, okay, cool, man. And then, but you're right, it was big. So you'd had all those DJs, and like you said, when you went into the clubs, the music was that high intensity. There was a lot of happy hardcore play. There was a lot of rave and all that kind of stuff. And that's, as a young person, that's what sort of drove you, that faster music. You know, when you get a little older, maybe your sort of BPM likes to come down a little bit. But the scene here was huge. And he was, for me, like a big inspiration, like for me as a DJ back in the day, because he was on the radio, he was playing clubs, he was big, everybody knew him, he had some hits out. He worked with, you know, Scottish like, what do you call them, rave bands like QFX,
Yeah.
Ultrasonic, for example, as well. TTF, I think, as well. So he had some big tunes back in the mid-90s. So yeah, it was great. See, because when can you switch on the radio and listen to happy hardcore now? You know,
It's gone, isn't it?
No way.
Yeah.
You know, and it's such a shame. It's such a shame because it's such a phenomenal. It's got such a phenomenal atmosphere to the music.
Yeah.
Like it's that sort of you know, it's like a workout. You know, you go to a rave and you come out like you've lost a stone.
It is a mental genre. I mean, when I first got into it, like I said in some previous podcasts, like I really cut my teeth on hard house. And
yeah,
if I listen to like some of my old hard house fun, I'm like, fucking hell. Well, happy hardcore was like a different level to even hard house, wasn't it? It was, God knows what, I don't know what BPM happy hardcore was, probably like 180.
150 to 165 usually, mate.
It was fast. But yeah, it's there's actually a wicked documentary about the Scotland's rave scene on BBC iPlayer if anyone wants to check it out. It goes right the way back to sort of like those big open air raves that they used to put on. But yeah, what is interesting about what you say, and I picked up it from the documentary, is that they didn't used to put these big raves on in like the cities. It was little towns and villages and like crazy, really.
But then you had like they were packed, you know, communities. It was, you know, and actually, to be honest, I think they had people who would travel. They would, so say Tom Wilson, I'm going to be in Inverness next week or whatever. People would follow him around and that kind of thing. That's the kind of there was like a collection of people who just sort of frequented these events, and I think it's a brilliant time for a lot of people. And even now, you go on YouTube and you know, I listen to happy hardcore now, even still when I need that little bit of a lift, and you look in the comments on YouTube, and it's great because people say where they were when this song was out, and it's like, that's magic, mate. Do you know what I mean? That nostalgia, absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah, no, it's amazing. So I want to go a little bit further back than sort of the dance music. So what about your sort of early musical influences? What can you remember about that?
To be honest, the furthest back I can kind of remember, so I had quite a long commute to school when I was sort of growing up, and you know, so you had the Walkman, then you had the mini Discman, whatever. So I remember having my Walkman, and the music I was listening to back then was stuff like Guns N' Roses, Queen, all that kind of sort of popular kind of rocky stuff. And I don't know whether I loved it, phenomenal, like really catchy hooks and songs and all that kind of stuff, brilliant. But I don't know if I've necessarily noticed that influencing like taste later on. But what the biggest thing I know is because I just like so many different types of music, I just struggle to say, you know, if everyone asks you what type of music, like I just like it all, and everything's got something to bring to the table. You know, so back then, like it was more rocky stuff and that kind of thing. You're not having, I suppose you need to discover the dance music. There's sort of a tipping point when you're sort of 8, 9 years old. It's very difficult to know that sort of side of music exists.
I mean, sadly, I'm at a stage where when I was 8 and 9 years old, house music really was in its fairly early days. You know, that would, when I was 8 or 9, that would have been like in the early 90s, and house music had only really just started kicking off in the late 80s. So it was like, you know, but when I got to like 12, 13, house music towards like the late 90s was like really rolling at that point, like, and that was my most vivid memories. So what would you, if you were to describe yourself as a DJ and producer, how would you describe your sort of like vibe, style?
I suppose like that is one thing, high energy. So you know, I love track. It's like, I suppose you have different types of tracks. You've maybe got like, how would you say it, like a 10 o'clock track, an 11 o'clock track, 12 o'clock track. I love playing the 1 o'clock peak time stuff, because it just gives you that ultimate buzz. So that I don't mind playing like the odd chilled back kind of laid back set, which is absolutely fine. But for me, it's all about bangers, man, and that's
At least you're honest.
yeah. Well, that's it, mate. To be honest, I'd say I don't listen to a lot of tunes which aren't kind of like, it's got to be hooky. It's got to be like either hooky, catchy, or it's got to have something driving behind it. And that for me is like all that kind of stuff. Try to incorporate that stuff as a DJ. I suppose as a DJ as well, you're starting off on vinyl, obviously, and then transition into sort of, you know, electronic MP3 CDs and all that stuff. I'm glad I went through that sort of era of being a vinyl DJ, because you know, no beat matching, no waveforms, no hot cues or anything like that. Just your hands and your ear, and it stands you in good stead for being a DJ. Like, you know, to be honest, a lot of the time you go into a club, I can't see anything. Like, it's so dark, and I'm having to rely on just my ear anyway. So I think it does totally help you. Yeah. So like, but I think I like a little bit of a mashup as well. Yeah. So at the moment as well, I'm trying to incorporate like more than 2 decks in my sets as well. Yeah. So, you know, at least 3, 4. You know, I'm not Roger Sanchez yet, to be honest with you. So, or 6 decks, even if sometimes I think he's on. But yeah, no, like a lot of mashups. I like edits, so I like to incorporate a lot of edits into my sets. Like, so songs that have been, you know, like anthems back then, maybe slightly different vibes. So, for example, like some of the sort of garagey speed garage tunes from the mid-90s, like I don't know if you remember the tune Serious Danger Deeper, and 187 Lockdown Gunman and all that kind of stuff. Those little sort of twinkly kind of songs, like trying to bring them up to maybe sort of house tech house kind of vibe, and then incorporating that. I think that's the sort of thing I like doing, and it just, you've got that driving beat, but then you've got that hook line as well, which just people go, oh my god, love this track. It brings back memories, you know. That's the kind of vibe I like to create a lot of the time. But I love, you know how like DJs like hate requests. I actually love requests. I actually love taking requests from people, you know, probably before sets. Obviously during sets is a bit problematic, but I love like sort of trying to find songs that I think people are going to like as well before. So pre-planning those sets as well is a big thing for me. But yeah, high energy, just trying to make everybody dance, man. That's what it's all about.
Oh, that is actually the job of a DJ. I mean, like it's I'd say like what I've like, my tastes have changed as time's gone on. I've got probably a deeper a deeper love for maybe the more deeper stuff, and the stuff that's you know, I see the quality in it. But I'm like you. I'm from a vinyl background, and I started DJing. It was all about, for me, it was about hard house and trance, and those genres are all about the drop. And for me, that's like, it's definitely been an influence that a lot of the records that I make, and this is a mad one, that snare rolls get like a bad press these days. I'm like, who gives a fuck? You know, at the end of the day, if you don't like it, don't worry about it. But I always, I mean, to the point where I've actually had people say like, oh, like, why don't you just make some music without snare rolls? And I'm like, no, because that's what you want to do. That doesn't mean that's what I want to do. And like, for me, I'm all about, a lot of the time is, and even when I do edits of old tracks, or if I do my own spin on it, I want to bring my energy into it. So things like snare rolls and stuff like that are just part of what I like, and you know, and that drop. But just about the vinyl bit, you bang on right. You know, I, like yourself, I learned how to DJ using a monitor speaker, not 2 headphones. You know, it was about, you know, it was about this ear and that ear working together. And that I think is totally, you can't beat it, because, you know, actually I don't need to look at anything to be able to mix 2 records together. I can do it just by the practice of my ears. And, you know, I wish, sadly, because of the room I'm in, I don't have the space to have my 1210 set up, but I really wish that I did, because I do a lot of live streaming now. So I had to choose one or the other, but I just haven't got the space. But I would
like the same. I've got the same issue. I've got you know, this is my garage, by the way. I've got like a little DJ set up here with, I've got the Pioneer XDJ XZ. So little bit like a sort of sort of a CDJ Nexus 2 900 mixer kind of setup. But yeah, I'd love to get my vinyls hooked up to channel 3 and 4, and sort of and get some of those old records from the attic, and just get them, you know. I'm a bit worried about doing that. I said to you before, it's on my to-do list to just get them all transferred, but I'm thinking maybe just get the 1210s hooked up might be a little bit easier. So
once we get somewhere with a little bit more space, that's definitely going to be my plan to get them back out. But I want to talk a bit about your label, because I really like it. So obviously you're the owner of BRAW Records, which is like what I'd describe as like something like a tech house label. Wicked music coming off there. But I really want to like talk about where that came from and a little bit about your thoughts on labels, because I know what they are and I hold a very similar opinion. So, mate, the floor is yours. Talk to me about your record label.
Yeah, so BRAW Records, I started it this year. I actually released something last year by myself on it, but it was very informal. So the official launch of it was May this year. And I was saying to you before, just before we logged on, it was probably the worst time to start it in terms of time, because I just had a baby in June. So, you know, my time, as I said before, has been, you know, is absorbed by that. But you know, I'm glad of that because I love it. So I suppose the ethos for starting it was a little bit of passion to do my own label. You know, I think I could make a good fist of that, and a little bit of maybe like frustration with the sort of the establishment, if you want, label wise, that we sort of artists have to face. You know, as an artist, you spend so much time creating tracks, you think brilliant, that fits that label, and then you'll send it to a label, you won't hear back. You won't even get feedback. The track won't even get played. You've given them ample time, etc. And you just, you know, that is so deflating, and it puts you off the brand completely. So, you know, to be honest, a little bit short-sighted from labels, if you want. They kind of sort of puts a negative spin on their brand. But so, and then you've got like, if you do get a track signed, for example, great. And then sort of, all right, okay, we'll release your track, and that's kind of all that happens. The track is released. It's available on Beatport, Spotify, Tracksource, etc., etc. And there's very little kind of value add from the labels to the artist. You do a lot of the legwork. I know we were talking about this before. You know, you've had a similar experience.
100%.
And so I was like, right, I can do this. And you know what? Having done the Toolroom Academy Creativity Unlocked course, there's a lot of guys, you know, looking to get their first track on a label. It helps actually to have a label, funnily enough, to get your track signed by a label. So I thought, let's do something on this. We'll focus on giving sort of new upcoming artists, you know, helping them get noticed. So we don't just release the tracks. We do a lot of feedback. So we listen to every demo within 3 days. We try to give feedback if we're not going to sign the track. Sometimes we work with the artists on the track to sign it before, or you know, 20% of the time it's like, right, that's a slam dunk. It's all, you know, let's get the contract done. And then from then out, it's planning the release schedule. It's planning the promo. So we do a lot of videos. We send it to tastemakers. We get feedback for the artists. I also built a contact of like people who can sort of get tracks on Spotify playlists, not editorial playlists, but other playlists. So we do a lot of investment in liaising with those guys. And it's just that communication, and sort of giving artists a platform to sort of, here's the track, and getting as many people to buy it as possible. That is what we do. So we're really focused on getting new talent coming through, and we've just released today I think we're at category number 12, so our 12th release. And we've got another 6 releases coming out this year, so we'll be up to nearly 20, which is quite phenomenal in 7 months for our new label. And it's just me, and I'm putting my, I suppose, heart and soul into it, to help these guys in their music. And then we've got a few in the pipeline for next year already, and we're actively looking for more tracks and more artists. And we've got some returning artists as well. So they've had that good of experience.
They come back.
They're coming back with more tracks. And because I'm in that Tool Room Academy kind of, collective, we've had a lot of Tool Room Academy graduates releasing tracks. Some even coming up in December, which is phenomenal, which is great to give them a platform. So it's a passion, mate. It's hard graft, but I actually love it. So it's very rewarding getting the guys on charting on Beatport. As we're focusing on Beatport mostly because it seems to be the best platform, particularly for tech house. But it's absolutely brilliant when we get the guys on the charts, the hype charts in Beatport, and sometimes we've had a couple of artists get into the main genre charts as well recently. So things are great. We're getting some great feedback on it, and as I said to you before, we're even looking to see how to make it better for next year and the newer artists coming through. We're going to do a survey and just sort of get a few bits of feedback on perhaps extra things we could do. And I think that sets us apart from, other established labels. We've all been there, which don't really do much at all for artists, and they gobble the tracks up, they release them, and then you're left, well, great, but it hasn't really benefited me. I've not seen my Spotify followers rise. I've not noticed any Instagram followers or anything like that. We want that sort of growth for artists to come through, not just get the tracks on the platforms.
Yeah, mate, I think what you're doing is amazing, and I think a lot of it comes from your passion to want to get it right for people. And I try and do exactly the same with my label, and it really is bred out of bad experiences I've had with releases of my own music. And exactly what you're saying, what you're doing is it's really slick. Like I've been following the label almost from day dot, and we're sort of coming to contact with each other, and you get the good promo videos out there. You're going about things the right way, and I think that's the most important thing. And I think one thing that I've sort of come into the realization of, and this hasn't quite really it's not become huge in the dance music area yet, but if you look at different genres of music, there's so many fully independent artists that grow a buzz around themselves. They don't even want to be signed to major labels. They don't want to be signed to big labels because they want that sort of ownership of their own art, and they've created a big fan base around themselves, and they're able to tour, they're able to, and they get pretty much 100% of their profits. And, I listen to loads of stuff on YouTube about it, and what they're actually saying is that they're getting the door knocks from many major labels. I'm talking about really in like pop music and stuff like that. And they're like, nah, I'm not interested. Because the reality is, when I sign to you, I hand over rights. The amount of money that I'm likely to make could actually go down, not up. Now, I've not seen as much of this migration over to dance music, but it will come. It will come to the point where actually being a really big label won't actually have all the leverage, because at the minute, how most people build their artist career is they have to get their tracks signed on those big labels to make themselves move forward. And for me, I just think that is just, I think these big labels, the big tastemaker labels in our industry, have far too much control over artists, because at the end of the day, if you get your track signed to one of these big labels, the thing is, it can get you a lot of exposure. But unless you're actually properly signed to that label, you're just a release to them.
Exactly.
You'll come and go.
That's it. You are like, there's a lot of people that have released on big labels, and then you just think, well, what's happened to them? They don't seem to be doing anything. Like, you look at Tool Room, for example, you've got guys who release on there, but then you've got their sort of official artists like your Ilias and Barrientos and things like that. These are the guys who are getting exposure and
100%.
that kind of thing. And that's I suppose that's the aim for everyone, but there's only limited spots. So you're right, like it is like a leveling up kind of thing, where the whole kind of self-release sort of mechanism available to everybody now is an option. And yourself, you're willing to put the work in, building a network, building contacts. You can do pretty well for yourself. So I was saying to you before, like my first release was a self-release. And it got on a Spotify editorial, and I picked up 100% of the profits from that. So that is an option, especially if you're looking to make an income from music. It's so hard, and if you're already giving away of 50% of, you know, whatever's left over after costs and whatnot from the bigger labels, you're there's no way to earn an income unless you're getting gigs from it. And it's that is the hard thing actually for a lot of people, is to sort of stick with it, because financially it's very difficult. And it is, you know, you got to just stick with it for the passion. I think, you know, I've you know, when you start thinking about all the equipment you buy, all, you know, plugins, blah blah blah, all that kind of stuff, you know, everybody's probably in a very big loss making position when it comes to their music.
I mean, I don't know if you've ever come across the guy on YouTube. His name's Adam Ivy. He's a music. Yeah. Well, I'm actually enrolled in his mentorship program at the minute. And I've got to say, you know, I just want to give a shout out to Adam Ivy if he comes across this, which he might. He does, it's called Sound Music Masterclass. And basically the whole idea behind it is actually, as long as your music's at a level where it's good enough, which is all subjective in itself, it's about how to actually try and build a bit of a structure around you to, in the future, actually make some money out of it, which is obviously the bit that sort of like boggles everybody's minds. And I had a Zoom call with him a few weeks ago, and what he was describing to me, I really like hit the spot, because what he was saying to me was, he was like, honestly, dude, he was like, focus on building yourself up. He says, because then you'll get, if you ever get to a stage with the big labels, you'll get the best deal if you want it. Because the problem being is, when you need them and when you're constantly wanting, if they want to sign you, they'll sign you at a much cheaper rate. That's the problem, is that if you're like at the stage where you're like, well, do you know what? I've built my own empire. I've got my own label. I've got my own this. I'm already touring. You know, I've got myself to a stage where my money, you know, from a financial perspective, it's already happening for me. Well, that is a problem for them, because the reality is, if they come in with a low deal for you, you know, well, we'll give you this, we'll give you that. It's like, no, I don't need it, to be honest with you. And that's where what he was saying is, he was like, if you just focus on what you're doing, and he sort of like said this great analogy. He's like, if you build it, they will come.
Yeah,
that's like all it comes down to. If you've got value and you're already making money, and they think, oh, hang on a sec, and it's the same with managers, booking agents, all this. If they think, oh, we'd quite like a slice of that pie, you know, that person's on the up. They've got their own, little company on the go. That's what it comes down to.
Yeah, man, totally. And you know, I know one example of it, and I kind of been following him for a while, you know, couple of years. But there's a chap called Ben Rainey, who I first noticed him when he was doing kind of YouTube tutorials on sort of music production. He would do like how to make like Weiss, you know,
I've come across him,
and then and he seems to be really proactive on the kind of building his brand. So he's doing things like you know, sort of branded memory sticks with tracks on them, and he's selling them. He's very active on Hyped It, you know, as well, you know, building his network, and he's got a lot of followers. So, and then recently you've then noticed a bit of a move, so into, he's getting on quite big labels, and I'm assuming that's because, as you said, he's built himself up, and then they've probably gone, oh, have you got anything for us? Oh yeah, no, I have. And then that's your way in. It's probably a more effective way, and then
it is.
You also build that income stream, which you need.
If you logically, at the end of the day, we do this all for passion, but you know, you have to try and make some money out of it at some point. So if you're a big label, a Defected, a Tool Room, one of these big like tastemaker labels, at the end of the day, they have the opportunity to pretty much go to anybody and say, would you like to work with us? And most people are going to do that. So you got to, like, I suppose the real cold hard facts is why, you know, what would make them want to come and work for you? Because at the end of the day, why, you know, they're not doing it for a joke. At that level, it's a business, you know, and I get it. It is about the music, but it is a business. And it's like, well, there needs to be something there for them to want to work with you. And whatever way you look at it, you're probably going to find it is the fact that you are able to generate income already.
And that's what it's all about as well, you know. And that's it. So again, another hat on here, to be honest with you. Like I went through a phase in the early 2000s where I was a hip hop and R&B DJ, mate. And I was doing a lot of stuff in Glasgow on that front. And again, it's just it was the scene at the time. It blew up, and you know, the opportunity was there. But anyway, I was listening to, I can't remember who it was. It might have been Snoop Dogg. And he was like, you know, the rappers these days, it's not about, you know, the rap is pretty poor. When you compare the rappers these days to say sort of the greats of like 20 years ago, they're not the best. It's all about who they can market. It's all about who they can market. And if you're marketable, then you know you're off to a winner. We look at, for example, that guy Pitbull. You know, he blew up about 10 years ago, and he's probably done extremely well for himself. But by no means is he the best rapper around. So, and there's probably a lot better underground guys than him. So, yeah, it's all about how you can sell them and make the money. If unfortunately these days, and to get part of that scene, it's getting more and more difficult. So you're right, mate. You know, you've got to think about yourself and, you know, prioritize how you can kind of extract some revenue from any streams that you've got, even if, you know, you're looking at YouTube, for example, and building a network on there and trying to build a channel. A lot of people do that quite successfully and get sort of advertising revenues. It's one of the options, you know, one of the options you can do.
Well, one thing's guaranteed, that if you're, and I don't want to be, again, I suppose we really are saying some industry truths here, but if you think you're going to get rich just off your music as an up and coming artist, it's not going to happen. There's not a lot of money in it, is there?
That's it, mate. For me, it's all about, you know, the most money per sort of unit of effort will come from gigging. You know,
100%.
Just 100%. You know, as an artist, even the big boys probably don't make much money from their music. To be quite honest, you have to, how much to make 3K, for example, on Beatport? What, 2,000 copies, depending on the price, and then you give Beatport the share, then you give the label the share. Nothing. And then it's the gigging, and then you've got, even on the gigging, if you're big enough, you've got management, they'll take a cut, and then you've got your tax on that. You know, so it's a hard industry. You do it for the love, and if anyone who can make a living and enjoy their life just off doing the music, they've absolutely cracked it. They must be doing really, really well. I still work, you know, full time. Obviously, I have to, because, you know, the money from music just isn't there at all for, you know, on that scale. So, you know, I don't mind particularly doing that, because, you know, it's like, as you know, watch a lot of videos from, you know, Gary V, and you know, and how everyone needs a side hustle and all this. Is kind of the side hustle, and you know, expanding. So you're talking about different things. So the label, for example, it is unfortunately at the moment a bit of a loss-making operation, but you know, as it grows, we hope to do a bit better. And the mixing and mastering stuff is another thing. I just love audio, and sort of I've invested a lot into understanding what is, you know, good mix, good master, etc. I've done courses, I've got loads of equipment, etc. And for me, it's just a really good thing. So I'm on Sound Better as well, which is like used to be owned by Spotify. It's just changed hands. So I do a bit of work on there. Just it gives me a little bit of income. You know, to be honest, it's just pocket money really. But yeah, no, it is a hard one, mate. And if you can find the golden answer, let me know.
Mate, likewise. So what would be, in an ideal world, the sort of dream for you, that, you know, where you'd love to get this to, if it were possible?
Well, I suppose with different hats on, I think as an artist, you know, we've talked about, you know, the sort of ups and downs of chasing releases on large labels, but undoubtedly there is a bit of vanity in that. And, you know, you know, as much as you sometimes protest, I'm not sending the demo there again, I'm not doing it, I'm not putting myself in that position where I get let down. there is always that, do you know what, let's just let's just
The
test the water
dirty boy,
here.
isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. So it's like, okay, let's do that. So to be honest, I say to you, I've got a lot of stuff in the pipeline, music-wise, not finished tracks, but a lot of, I think, good stuff, and actually a lot of stuff that I think I'm going to release on under different projects. And this is another thing that's, you know, kind of the sort of norm now, where people kind of focus just on one brand.
Yes.
Whereas in the like late 90s and things like that, particularly in trance, you got like big artists releasing under different names, you know, like I think it was Ferry Corsten, they do, you know, Guriella and all that.
Yeah.
They'll just release tracks under different sounds, if you want. So I've got a lot of maybe 2 or 3 different kind of monikers where I'm going to release stuff, something a bit more garagey on one, maybe a bit more techie on the other. And I think on LeBon, for example, it started off a bit housey. It then progressed into a little bit of like tech house, but I think I'm going to just reel that back and stick with more housey stuff, like funky house, like on more track sourcey type labels. So yeah, no, I think that's that for me is what I'm going to be focusing on music wise going forward. But yeah, so I think doing that, so getting on a decent label, like if I can get on a Toolroom or Glasgow Underground, for example, that'd be a box check. That'd be great. Yes. And I was thinking label wise, just keep doing what we're doing. I'm really proud of what we've done so far, and I just want to keep going. I want to keep it going. And I was looking on Beatport the other day, and I noticed that they do something called like Label of the Month. And I think it was like Nervous or something. Obviously, been going for 30 years. Very big label. It would be good to try and aspire to getting some kind of recognition like that. You know, that's a very ambitious kind of thing to do, and probably in the more longer.
Nervous started from somewhere.
That's it, man. That's it. If you've got the passion for music, and you know, I think I've always had a pretty good ear for a tune. So that's half the battle, I think, when you've got a record label. And so I think artist-wise, ticking off that big label probably is a big one. And then, you know, the label thing, just keeping it going, even if it doesn't do anything miraculous. If we can continue to help guys on their journey, their musical journey, then that out for me is great. It's great. Just love it. Yeah.
No, it's amazing, mate. And you know, like something that somebody said to me a little while ago was, you can't compare your chapter 1 to somebody's chapter 12, because like you say about Nervous Records, they've been going. I mean, I've got Nervous vinyl from 1993 or something like that. You know what I mean? Like, they've been going for years. And if you think about it, like when your record label is 10 years old, if you carry on the consistency, and it's the same with mine, because I've got a fairly new label from just the last sort of like 2 years. Actually, like once it's been going for a long time, it picks up its own momentum through the back of that. Now, don't know if it could ever get to like a Nervous Records situation, but at the end of the day, they all started from somewhere.
That's it. And do you know what? How many labels which started at the same time that Nervous Records started are still around? You know, if it's a longevity in the brand. Even that, for example. I mean, I don't even admit to liking every track on Nervous Records, but they're quite eclectic, but iconic label, and you know, brilliant. So I think if you've got that consistency of, you know, quality releases and that longevity, when you build your network, then you know, you can make a really good label. You just don't know where it could go. And look at Defected, for example. I think Simon Dunmore, he was at AMPM, and then sort of started Defected, Defected, and look what it is now. I mean, you know, you look on Instagram and or Twitter and things like that, and he's posting a lot of things about, you know, working with huge labels like BMG and the publishing houses and that sort of thing, and the revenue streams on that sort of stuff, you know, used in advertising and all that, massive.
I mean, I think I think for any independent record label, I think you really do have to look at Defected as like the main like benchmark, because what they have done over, I mean, they've been going for a long time. I mean, I remember buying the first Defected vinyls in like 1999, so they're not just been at it a few years, they've been at it a long time. But their model of, you know, live shows, festivals, you know, the music that comes off the label, the fact they own about 6 labels like Sulfuric and Classic House and all that sort of stuff, and they have a radio show. They're all about community. You know, they do festivals in Croatia. You know, it's a huge, I mean, they work with big brands like Heineken, you know, like that. To me, what they've got on the go, that machine is unbelievable.
It is. It's an amazing. It's an empire.
Yeah,
you want to call it that. What they built there, like, you know, you just have to look at that. I was looking on, obviously, Instagram, and that Croatia festival actually looks, you know, unbelievable. A massive undertaking to put on overseas as well. You know, UK based company, but yeah, phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal, and all the sort of diversification of the revenue streams, like merchandise and all that, publishing, events, phenomenal, absolutely. It is the kind of, like, as you said, the blueprint, and you know, to sort of try and follow if you want, from humble beginnings. But it's great, man. It's great.
Go on, mate. Sorry.
Thinking about you just got me thinking. I'm wondering, my first Defected record, might have been, was it Powerhouse featuring Dwayne Hardin?
I've got it. I've got it.
I think
that was 99.
It was all Defected, wasn't it? I think that was my first one. Absolute classic.
What You Need, it was called, wasn't it?
What You Need, brilliant. Absolutely.
My first one was Paul Johnson, Get Down.
Oh, epic. Epic.
Yeah. And that was one of their early ones.
1999 was some year.
1999, I say this to people, and I've said this to my mates, if you want to listen to a year's worth of house music and be wowed, I mean, so many tracks that come out that year and now classed as anthems. Pete Heller, Big Love. Armand Van Helden, you know.
Masters at Work.
Masters at Work, To Be in Love. You know, Dwayne Hardin.
I like Fats and Small. Fats and Small.
Oh, yeah. Like, so many big records came out at that time. So, like, getting into the last 10 minutes,
mate.
We could probably talk forever. Have you got
we could do
advice that you could offer people in the industry or newcomers from what you've learned over the years?
It's a good question. I actually wrote a couple of things down, just to sort of remember this, because I actually think this was quite an important one. This is kind of linked to the label sort of side of it as well. It's like, given that sort of experience and learnings, you know, it's almost giving you that jump start to, you know, avoid these kind of pitfalls. But I think the first one is, and it's not something I've always done either, it's hold your music and yourself to a really high standard, you know, and I don't mean in terms of audio quality, for example, not necessarily just that, but first of all, don't be in a rush. I think the worst thing you can do as an artist is think, oh God, I need to be like that, and you know, I need to be like bigger and, you know, whatnot. Just create something which is true to yourself, good quality. Don't rush it. You know, get as much feedback as you can from people. That feedback process is actually really good. It's not just feedback, it's like a networking opportunity as well. And just hold yourself. Don't just then think, you know, if you believe in that track, don't then go, I just want to get it out. I'll just send it to that label, and you know, we'll just move on to the next one. Self-release it, keep it for yourself for a bit. Maybe try and get it heard send it out on promo to some DJs on Instagram, see if they can play it. Like, don't just be in a rush to get things out there and then for there to be little benefit to you. There's always got to be something like value add in what you do, and don't just release songs as well. I think I've been a little bit guilty, and I do regret releasing some songs actually. Don't release songs, and this is probably a controversial point, but try and stick as much as you can within the bounds of a sound for a particular brand.
100%.
So if you're releasing track source type sort of house, don't release tech tracks, you know, on that brand. Keep them for another brand. So just try and keep your sound so when people are listening to you, they know what they're going to get to a certain extent. And especially nowadays with Spotify algorithms and that, you want to have a consistent kind of sound. So when people are creating playlists, it gives, oh, try this. So I think take your time, try and be consistent, and just hold your music to a really high standard. Don't let anybody kind of, knock it, put you down. Just hold everything to a really good standard and believe in yourself. That's the main thing. And don't panic. I can't stress it enough. Don't panic. You think I do it as well. Even now, I'm thinking, oh, I need to get the track out. Chill out. And in terms of labels as well, so there's a lot of big debate about, sending a song to a label, how long should you give them to get back? So some labels have on their demo submission page that if you don't hear back within 30 days, you can send your song to another label. Okay, thanks for that, guys. So that's, for me, is quite a long time, particularly as an artist who didn't have a record label, but even now have a record. I think that's too long. I would give labels max 2 weeks before sending it to somebody else. I think that's an entirely reasonable length of time for someone to listen to a track, and before you send it to someone else. And then you're protected. You say, look, if they do come back and say, well, actually, guys, I've sent it to another label already because you took 2 weeks to respond, I think that's absolutely reasonable. And do just only send it to one at a time. I think it's always tempting to try and send it to like multiple ones, but I have that nightmare of two coming back at the same time and thinking, oh my God, what do I do here? So and that's an instant black mark, to be honest. I try to be quite chilled out with that sort of thing when I get demos. It's never happened to me, but if it did happen, I'd probably be a little bit less dramatic about it. But yeah, try and just like sort of stick to that kind of thing. I think whatever seems reasonable to you and what would be considered reasonable to them, I think that's the best way to do it. I think the second bit of advice I would say to people is invest in yourself. So we've got to start somewhere. So I think I started in 2012 with FL Studio, and I didn't have a bloody clue. So I just started with the software on YouTube tutorials, and to be honest with you, didn't really pick it up. I kind of sort of dwindled with music production for quite a few years and didn't really get anywhere to like a good standard at all, because I wasn't clued up of where I needed to go to kind of do that, and I was mostly just doing it for kind of making my own little like mashups and melodies and that sort of thing. But what I would say is try and invest in yourself. So even if it's doing like the Tool Room Academy courses, they can be quite pricey, but they're brilliant. So you can get from complete beginner to a pretty reasonable producer. I'm not saying that once you finish the Tool Room stuff, you're going to get on big labels, initially, but it'll give you the basics of what you need to make a good track. So arrangement. That's something I struggle with big time. I think, to be honest, the song itself, hooks and that sort of thing, come a little bit easier, but arrangement, so important. But yeah, invest in yourself, even if it's like Fader Pro courses. I've bought quite a lot of them in the past, really like that. I've also been using Mixtank more recently, which are really good. I think it's the Label Works guys that are doing that, and they're about sort of ranging between 15 and 50 quid for depending on what the course is, but you can pick up a lot. And if this is a big one, if anyone wants to improve their mixing and mastering, there's a guy I think he's the head engineer at CR2 Records, Larry Holcomb. He's got a couple of Fader Pro courses, so less than 50 quid a piece. The amount of good advice for mixing records in those is unbelievable. And you've got established producers trying to charge 2K for the same level of learnings. So absolutely go there. And I'll just think what the last one is. And it's not just invested. The third one is you know, invest in yourself, but invest in other people as well, because this industry is so small. So, you know, well, when I say there's a lot of people trying to get in, but think of UK house, you know, there's a lot of producers that you know. So how did we start, for example, Tom? You know, like getting to know each other. So it becomes a network. So
Yeah, absolutely.
If you can help other people, they'll help you, and it builds relationships, builds networks. You know, for example, you might have someone in mind for a gig that you know off Instagram. To be quite frank with you, I think I've built some better relationships with people I didn't know before on Instagram than I actually know in my Facebook friends, and I've not seen for donkey's years.
Yeah.
So and a lot of stuff, even this thing that we're doing just now, you know, this is all how it works. So you know, I've got this going on. Do you want to be involved? Oh yeah, that's fine. And then vice versa, I've got something else. It's all circular. So if you can do something to help each other, it all comes round. So that's what I would say. Invest in other people as well, and learn, soak stuff up. Like I just like to be open-minded, Tom. You know, like for example, I think you really like a guy called what's his name again? Todd Edwards.
Yes. Yeah.
And to be quite honest with you, I never really knew much of him.
Yeah.
But so I seen you posted some stuff on Instagram about it. Okay, I'll check. This looks good.
Yeah.
So I went on YouTube and I was blown away.
Yeah.
This guy, both as a DJ, there's some live footage of him playing some garage gigs, and I think he's either from Canada or America. Correct me if I'm wrong.
He's from the States somewhere.
He's from the States. Yeah. So he was at this gig, I think, in Essex or something like that, and he's got
I know the video.
UK garage shirt on, and bro, what a vibe!
And then big in the day.
Oh, so and this like that sound. Great sound, and I can kind of see that, hear that in your sound. I can hear that kind of stuff coming
big
through.
Influence on me.
And also as a producer, I then found some stuff on YouTube of him doing like a production tutorial. Some absolute gems in that. So that's what I'm saying. You know, be open, like learn from other people, and for me, that's fantastic, and that's part of the fun. That's part of the fun.
Absolutely, mate. Some great pieces of advice there, and I think really, obviously we're running out of time a little bit. We probably need a part 2 to this because there's so much more we could discuss. You know, I don't think an hour's quite long enough, but we've got to bring it to a close because I got this through Zoom and it doesn't let me go any longer. But where can people find you, mate? So where can people find you and the label and what you do?
Well, hopefully everywhere. So, you know, Instagram, you can find us on Instagram, BRAW Records. LeBon on Instagram as well, Facebook. You'll find us on Beatport and Track Source. We've got label profiles there. You check out some of the tracks. All the tracks are kind of featured on the Instagram, so you can hear them with the promo videos and that sort of thing as well. And 100%. If there's any producers watching it and you want to work and get music out there and sort of work with people who really want to push it forward, then get in touch. And one of the things I'm conscious of as well, Tom, is that and it is a male dominated industry, but I'd really, really, really like to hear from female producers. I'd love to get some female producers on the label next year. Not to check any boxes or anything like that, just because I think it's a slightly different sound or a different vibe that I just like to hear more.
Definitely,
so,
mate.
But check us out. And as I said, really a big thanks to you for having me on. And you're doing great. Enjoyed the tracks on Simma and the gigs. I think you did a gig down in London.
Been gigging quite a lot.
Devstar.
Devstar. Yeah, nice guy. I've got him coming on actually in a few weeks. So
wicked.
Yeah. Wicked. So right, mate. Really thank you for coming on. I do appreciate it. And we will catch up soon.
Thanks, buddy. Appreciate it.
Cool.
Take care, mate.
Yeah, mate.